We continue our sermons in Ephesians with Ephesians chapter 3, verse 13. I pray, therefore, that you may not lose heart over my sufferings for you. They are your glory. Hear what the Spirit is saying within the text, with an old text to you. I have a confession to make. I've been having entirely too much fun poking at and making fun of Donald Trump. It's awfully easy to do, you know. I mean, the guy's such a blowhard. He, spouts off the most outrageous, ridiculous things. He lies straight out, and people don't seem to care. I mean, he's an easy target. And I have a lot of fun doing that. And there's an advantage to that, of course. To seeing someone and recognizing all the hatred and the vile, disgusting attitudes he has towards people. It's fun to see that because the advantage is that I look pretty good in comparison. You see, I can be very sure that I am morally superior. And that is dangerous. It's a problem. It's something that we human beings do quite a bit. There's a word for it. We scapegoat somebody. Something's going on inside us. We're uncomfortable with it. We can't exactly put our finger on it, but boy, we can put our finger on it in somebody else. And the thing about the scapegoat is they usually have the characteristics or the weaknesses that we find objectionable. And so we all band together, we gather together, we have a grand old time ostracizing the person because, wow, do I hope that that's what's going to happen to Donald Trump. And we managed to get rid of that infection, I guess, in the system, but we haven't solved any of the problems. We haven't looked at what's going on in our own heart. We've just assumed that we're right and everybody else is wrong. It's complicated. Because each time I would say that, there's something going on in you, you could point very easily to the object, to the scapegoat, and say, see how ridiculous they are? And that's true, and we get this self-righteous anger going on. Now, the truth is that I think what's happening is that we're afraid. When I look at Donald Trump, I sometimes can see a mirror of what happens in the rest of America and even in my heart. We're afraid. We're in I guess you could call it a very fertile moment. I mean, the field is being tilled by the Spirit of God. Something new is emerging. And the trouble is that when something new emerges, something from the past is going to be destroyed. It's going to fall apart. And that's something that worries us. And so we contract. And it's this contraction that we're seeing voiced by Donald Trump, loud and clear. Others too, many others. And it's easy to make fun of him and kind of put it off, but the reality is that we are uncomfortable. There are just so many shifts and things happening. And the dynamic occurs more than in this political realm. That one's just kind of obvious. I see it taking place in the realm of teachers and students, in the realm of churches and communities, where people get this polarized, self-righteous indignation and shun the other, push them out as though somehow that's going to solve the problem. In that contraction, we do a lot of destruction to somebody else, and maybe they even deserve it. But we don't do much to heal the self. And I think a very similar dynamic was going on when Paul, or the author of Ephesians, was writing. I mean, this paragraph, or a couple of paragraphs here that ends with, I pray therefore that you may not lose heart over my sufferings, for they are your glory. We talked last week about the fact that some of it sounds a little defensive. Sounds like maybe Paul was being scapegoated. And you can certainly see in a community whose leader, where that's happening, they are in danger of losing heart. They are in danger of second guessing. I mean, you just kind of imagine it. Paul's in a lot of trouble. He's gotten himself in jail, and so people start to wonder, well, what did he do? What didn't he do? Is he really the leader that we think he is? Is he not? You can see how his authority would be undermined. And that's a dynamic that tears apart at communities when someone is scapegoated. And so, with all that second guessing, he says, don't lose heart. But he works hard not to contract here. Instead, what he does is he opens up and tries to point to what God is doing in the midst of what is happening. Instead of responding with self-righteous anger, there's an effort to open up his heart and say, this is what God is about in this moment, because the mystery that's been revealed to Paul is that God is about unity, that God is all about drawing things together. And we've talked about how creation's impulse moves towards unity and beauty. That this is what God is about, and it's a move through death to new life. This is the mystery that's been revealed to Paul. It's the creative word that God speaks at the moment of death. And it keeps us from being afraid. We talked about the dance last week between Eros and Agape, between Phobos and Thanatos, between the love that yearns for connection, the gentle persuasion towards love that drives evolution forward, but that when out of control can lead to fear, Phobos. And then we talked about Agape, that generative power of creation that's offered to create beauty without receiving anything back, a power that can, when left unattended and unbalanced, move you towards Thanatos, towards death. But in the midst of this dance, as Eros and Agape are balanced, fear falls away, and the contraction and the open heart can then take place. And even in those moments when death occurs, when destruction of who you think you are occurs, well, a creative word from God is then spoken, and the new emerges. That's how creation unfolds and develops. So at these moments when we get in the self-righteous anger, and those are moments, to be really clear, there's something going on in us. Oh, I understand. There's something going on with the other, because we always pick a scapegoat that has weaknesses. And we may well have to deal with those that have weaknesses and ensure that they can't hurt us, like not voting for Donald Trump, for God's sake. We may have to do those things, but not with that self-righteous fervor that gives us this kind of delicious joy because it makes us feel morally superior. Instead, always seeking God's next beautiful step forward. This is, to me, what the heart of faith is reaching for. This is what we have a chance to be about. More and more, as this soil is tilled and everything is up in the air, there are moments for a new life to germinate and take hold and grow out of this. But not if we stay in that angry place. We need to open our hearts to love, to have that willingness to love without return, so that the next gorgeous iteration of creation can unfold within us. you.